So, Lone Rider here, and I want to talk about bicycle pumps. In particular, I want to talk about why I prefer a full-size frame pump. And it has nothing to do with the ability to shove it into somebody's front wheel while shouting Cinzano. Yeah, a breaking away joke for any cyclists out there. There are a lot of people who use mini pumps. There are a lot of people who use CO2 inflators. There are some problems with both. Basically, mini pumps, they're a pain in the butt, and it takes a lot longer to inflate because you move less air for each stroke of the pump. CO2 inflators basically use CO2, which, I mean, that sounds as obvious as the day is long, but there's a couple issues with that. And one is that the CO2 molecules are different than the molecules of what make up most of the air that gets pumped with a regular mechanical pump. Yes, there's oxygen in the air, which we all breathe, etc. But most of the air is nitrogen, and that's a little different than CO2. And so, your inner tube, for example, if inflated with one of these, will hold air for a fairly long period of time. If you inflate your inner tube on your bicycle with a CO2 pump, even if everything goes well and there's no malfunction, you'll have a flat tire in a day or two. And the reason is that the CO2 leaks out a lot easier than the regular air. I don't know if it's because the molecules are a different shape or a different size. I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on TV. I just know that's what happens. You also have the risk of burning your fingers or the valve as you're trying to inflate the tire. Basically getting a cold burn like you would from liquid nitrogen because the stuff comes out of the CO2 inflator very cold. So essentially, I use a full-size frame pump on all my road bikes. Now, where I don't use a full-size frame pump is on mountain bikes. And the reason is that a lot of times the frames aren't conducive to mounting one of these. And usually when you're mountain biking, you're carrying a backpack, so you can carry a fairly large diameter mini pump. The mini pump you might be able to fit, let's say, in a seat bag of a road bike is going to be narrow and really short. You could fit a much longer and more importantly wider mini pump in, let's say, a backpack, and that allows you to carry a pump that will approximate the volume of air of a full-size frame pump. It might be a little shorter, but it's also a lot wider, and yada yada. So when I don't use a full-size frame pump, I carry something that's essentially the equivalent when I can. Now that said, I've used mini pumps in the past, but I do prefer these, and like I said, there's a reason for it. And that reason, by the way, has nothing to do with throwing it into somebody's front wheel while shouting Cinzano. Again, for those of you who've seen Breaking Away. Yeah, these are just the best, most basic thing you can find. So, it may not be the trend now, but the trend now may be for everybody to carry the lightest, most minimalist gear. So, you just carry a credit card in your seat bag and a CO2 inflator. Maybe that's all you got. But I prefer to carry one of these, a pair of tire levers, and 2 spare tubes. Okay, and just throwing it out there, maybe you want to do that too. I mean, if you're going for a ride longer than you'd like to walk, if you get a flat tire, and I think generally speaking, that's for most of us bike riders. Most cyclists are going to be going further than they would like to walk if they got a flat. So, this in my opinion is the best, the tried and true and best option. CO2 comes through in a pinch, and it'll definitely inflate your tire and get you home. But then, well, after you get home, then you have to inflate the tire again because the CO2 is going to leak out. And the mini pump, well, it's going to take you like 2 or 3 times as long as one of these, if you're lucky. So, both of those options are better than walking, but this is better than both of those options. So, just throwing it out there. I use one of these, and maybe you want it too. Lone Rider out.